This is what the original software development cycle looked like, also known as Waterfall. It's important to keep in mind what the environment was like when Waterfall first came out. Very different than what it looks like today. Back in those days, there were very few capable developers to be able to write code in that complicated environment that they were in. Requirements were much simpler. The introduction to computers started off with some very simple requirements, nowhere near as complicated as requirements are today. Deployment was difficult to do, and as a result, with difficult deployments, they did it very infrequently. And they had very few capabilities to automate this. To be able to summarize this, what we're saying is, in these days of only mainframes, solo developers coding in assembly language, and simpler requirements, this approach was adequate, it was sufficient. But things started to change in the mid-60s. There was the emergence of COBOL, a language which was approachable to mere mortals as opposed to those assembly language developers. And now that more people were able to write code, there were more developers. And now we have developers working in teams rather than being solo. Many computers were introduced, computers like the PDP-11 and the DEC-VAX. And that meant that there were multiple computers in an environment inside of a corporate environment. This made it easier for developers to have their sandboxes to test their software in. And of course, requirements, as they are today, are getting more and more complicated. What that means is these changes required an update to the SDLC approach. In our next episode, we'll take a look at what those changes were and what motivated those changes. And were they good changes? Were they changes that were based on local optimization? We'll investigate that in the next episode.